My project focuses on the social economy of so-called alternative food initiatives here in Latvia. I usually study the practices and politics of food systems, so social economy is a recently new transition for me. So what I'm going to be talking about today is just sort of an introduction to the concept, what it can do for communities and individuals, as well as talking about social economy with the EU, and then focusing down to Latvia. The social economy is normally placed in what's called the third sector, so it's outside of the public sector and the private sector. Usually it arises when there have been identifications of a need for new resolutions or satisfactions of needs that have not been met or fulfilled within either the private or the public sector. So as we've seen from the previous two presentations, within the social economy, the organizations must be non-profit and have democratic governance with the objective to serve the members of the organization. The concept has become more prevalent in recent years as seen by the EU funding for different projects such as SUSI, but it's still unfamiliar outside of certain areas. Historically, social economy has been very strong in francophone countries or areas such as the province of Quebec in Canada, Belgium, and then France itself. And those places that are unfamiliar with the social economy usually term the activities that are taking place within it as voluntary or nonprofit. And also, as we've seen with the examples of the Helsinki Time Bank and the Bristol Pound, social economy can be used in conjunction with solidarity economics to understand economic alternatives to the current dominant state and market economies. So very quickly, just some social economy characteristics. They can be either formal or informal structures. Usually the aims include social reproduction, local capacity building, and addressing emerging risks for societies. It can include either paid or non-paid labor, as well as different forms of production and distribution. And they can work either in juxtaposition with current economic structures or attempt to work outside of them. So the term itself first appeared in economics literature in 1830 and includes cooperatives, nonprofits, social enterprises, and charities. So it's been around for a while, but it's still being debated as to what exactly the term means and how it is to be implemented. So this is John Pierce's 3 systems of the economy. And you can see the first system, which is the private, the second system, which is public services, and then what's termed like the third system, of which social economy is a part. And you can see how the social economy encompasses everything from global to neighborhood level, including things like time banks, community enterprises, and fair trade companies. There are different perspectives on the social economy. So there's the reformist, which wants better allocation of resources to support those who are marginalized, while the more radical seeks social economy as a construction site for building and implementing strategies outside of the current structures. So the question becomes, what can social economy do for communities and individuals? Importantly, it's a driver for social innovation and change. So it can create different forms of employment, whether it is new jobs and addressing unemployment in areas, or creating jobs that address the social issues that have been identified. It also creates social cohesion and the development and protection for things such as consumers and the environment. By placing people over capital, the sharing of surplus allows for a more even distribution of wealth. And the overall objectives of the concept can help create better working conditions and pay for workers, as well as job stability. Participatory democracy is a very large part of the social economy concept, so it essentially comes down to one worker, one vote. So this creates agency for the individuals who are working within these organizations. And it has been argued that this allows social economy organizations to be a buffer in times of crises, as well as to create new models of growth and structural changes. So the generation of wealth isn't confined just to financial capital, but includes social capital as well. So now we're just going to look at some quick snapshots of social economy organizations within the European Union and some around different parts of the world. So currently within the EU, there are 2 million social economy enterprises or organizations, which comprise of over 11 million people as employees. Since 2000, there have been over 200 texts that either reference social economy or explicitly talk to it that have been adopted by high-level EU governing bodies and organizations. So there's been a growing awareness of the concept and a growing involvement within the debates of what exactly social economy is throughout the EU. So quickly, one example from the UK is called The Big Issue. It is a magazine that is distributed on the streets of cities. The organization targets homeless or those who are in danger of homelessness, especially prolonged periods of homelessness. And the attempt to address these issues through a chance for these people to earn a viable income, as well as creating positive interactions to challenge the stigma surrounding homelessness. So it's a magazine that the people who participate can buy for, currently it's £1.25 and then sell on the streets for £2.50. And along with things about the news and entertainment, it does also have articles that talk about these social issues. Another example is from Italy called Retech Life Onless, which targets the disadvantaged who experience social exclusion. They mainly deal with people who have been in the penal system. So along with addressing issues of social regeneration and inclusion, they also focus a lot on environmental issues because they collect electronic waste and then reprocess it. And the third example is Sostra Civic from Spain, which is a housing cooperative. Members buy into this cooperative and their contributions allow them to access the housing and related services from the cooperative. And they've been very successful and have spread the cooperative model not only throughout Spain but to other countries. Very quickly around the world, as I mentioned, Canada has a strong tradition of social economy. It's also been included in many activities in countries throughout Latin America. And while there have been few governmental boards established within countries on the continent of Africa, there are some countries which are really fighting to include this within their governing bodies, including the Mali Department of Economic Solidarity. So now to the most important part, which is the Latvian context. As of 2010, there were 74 cooperatives, which had 440 employees and over 17,000 members. So while knowledge of social economy and solidarity economy may be low in Latvia, there are activities that are going on which encompass these values. According to the work that Pilot Project Latvia has done, enterprises within the country still confuse terms such as socially responsible enterprise and a social enterprise. But I would like to point out that this is done all over the world and not just in Latvia. So the concept is new and, quote, underdeveloped in the country, so there's room to grow. But this lack of awareness and even the resistance that has been referenced in previous presentations is due to the influence of centrally planned economies in Central and Eastern European countries in the past. Though I am sure many of you know there is currently a law in the works about social entrepreneurship activities within Latvia. And there, as I said before, there are activities being carried out within the country that aren't necessarily classed as being social economy, but are using the concept's objectives. And this can include work being done with the elderly, the disabled, or the socially excluded, as well as those focusing on various social, environmental, and economic issues. So again, I just want to stress that I am still very new to Latvia, so if anybody has any further information about social economy, I'm very open to anyone that wants to talk. Paldies!